Hey, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Regina. I even have my Choose Happy coffee mug here today, and Ken has his coffee. This is a brand new program, and we are going to be live every other Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to basically just have a cup of coffee and sit with one of our guests and just help you create more success, whether it's in your business or your life in general. So grab a cup and join us, and feel free to put some comments into our comment section and we'll post them out. If you decide to put some comments in, there's a little link. We use StreamYard to do our posting here, and StreamYard wants permission to actually tell us who you are. So there's a little link there for you to click on so that StreamYard says, yep, you're okay, we can give you permission. So with me today on our very first Coffee with Regina, we have Ken Attard with us. Now, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Awesome. And Ken is from Malta. So we'll ask him about that in a second. He is the founder of Mindset Malta, and he basically works with people helping frustrated entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot using his proprietary ARC method, which allows them to have more time freedom guaranteed. And today we're going to talk about being overwhelmed. And a lot of times, thinking we don't have enough time is one of our biggest overwhelming challenges. So welcome, Ken. Thank you for being here with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Regina. Thank you for thinking of me and asking me to be here as a guest.
And just for everybody who comes in and watches this, whether you're watching it on the live or you're watching the recorded version of it, tell us, where is Malta?
Malta is a very tiny island, approximately 120 square miles, and we are bang in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. So maybe to give people a little more logistics, about 60 miles south of Sicily.
Okay. All right. So Sicily on the boot?
Sicily is just below the boot.
Okay.
And we're just below Sicily.
All right. Wow. Okay. So you're having warm weather there? You're closer to the equator?
It's starting to pick up. It's actually taken a little longer this year, but we're starting to pick up. I think today we were probably at about, well, would have to flip it, but we're at about 25, 26 degrees Celsius today, which I think is probably going to be close to 80. I think it's close to 80, 75, something like that, probably. Yeah.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. So let's chat. So we wanted to chat today about overwhelm, because whether you're a business person or just somebody living their life, overwhelm is such a big thing. And there's lots of things that cause overwhelm. So let's just spend some time chatting on what do you think causes overwhelm for most people?
Wow, what causes overwhelm? There's a number of factors. I think one of the main factors is something that you mentioned, which is time. And when I say time, it's sort of when we want to achieve some stuff, that whatever it is we want to achieve, and we tend to put these time frames on them, which is great to put these time frames on. Yet when you're holding, I think the way I look at it is this: when you're holding very steadfast with that time frame, I think that sometimes can create the overwhelmment, because now all of a sudden, we have to reach that target or that goal by a certain time. And it's sort of like, if we don't arrive at that certain time, it's sort of like we would have failed. So now all of a sudden I'm starting to create a lot of stuff in my head, potentially saying things to myself like, I feel like a failure. I don't feel like I'm successful, and all of these things. Now, to slow things up a tiny bit here, to give a little more of a context as well, for anybody listening, it's important to understand that, with every thought we have, there is an associated picture, an associated movie, and like I said, potentially some internal auditory going on, things we're saying to ourselves, external auditory going. Sometimes we say stuff out loud, and it's these pictures, these movies that can start to create overwhelming. I can speak for myself, for instance, that one of the times that I find myself allowing myself to get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes is actually very early morning, or during the night, as I'm very early morning before I'm actually out of bed. And sometimes all of a sudden, some sort of thought crosses my mind of something I need to get done, or a number of things that I know I have to get done the following day, or something like that. And for some reason, for me, now this is not for everybody, but for me, at that time of the night, I have come to discover that somehow I paint a much bigger picture of all of these things that I need to get done, so that it seems like overwhelming. Like, how am I going to get all of these things done? Now, I've learned today how to change that picture very quickly, or that movie, or what I'm saying to myself, reminding myself, for instance, like, I'll remind myself, Ken, listen, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. This is unnecessary. And you know from past history that the minute you get up and you start going about your day, that these things that seem like so much, most of them will be done within the first 2 hours of your day. So I just remind myself, and I change those pictures, I change those movies. So I think something that is really important is that we begin to become aware of this, become aware of this, and understand that, first of all, you have all the time in the world to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. So when it comes to business, sometimes, we want to be this successful entrepreneur, this successful business person, and we want to be there by today. And all of a sudden, we're taken aback because we haven't arrived. And if you took time out of the equation, that's what I like to ask people. If you took time out of the equation, I don't know about you, Regina, I'm sure this is the same for you. I know it's for me, without a doubt. If we took time out of the equation, would there really be this overwhelmment? Would there really be this overwhelmment? So that's a question that I like to ask myself. And I say, okay, eliminate time. Would this really be an issue? What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
That's extremely true. And you touched on a couple things. Now, first off, you said you have the same problems with overwhelmment. And you know what? So do I. It's a lot of people look at those of us who work with mind and mindset and go, okay, well, you must have it down. So this doesn't happen to you. You just teach other people. And I was like, no, 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 no. We all get overwhelmed at some point. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter if you know this stuff or not. You still get overwhelmed, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And also, like, what's really cool as well is that we can actually teach, other, and pass on, because of experience as well. Like, I have no problem in saying, like, there were years ago, like, I'm telling you, man, like, I cried myself to sleep. I cried myself waking up, because there were times when it was so heavy. It really felt so heavy that I wasn't sure how I was going to get through the day. That's how much overwhelmment there was. So, but now I look at it as, okay, that was preparation. And I think this is key for people to understand. That was my preparation to be here today,
Yeah.
because potentially without that, I may not be able to uh, to 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 share that experience with someone, and not only share it. And I'm sure you find this as well with the clients you work with, that it actually is it's a soother, because we can actually say to them, listen, it's okay. You're going to get through this. I understand how overwhelming it can appear right now. Let's work on a few techniques. Let's work on a few things to help you actually see how it really isn't as overwhelming as you think it is right now, although it may appear that way.
Right. And the other thing that you said, that you kind of, it's skirting the surface of everything that you're saying right now, is it's the stories we create in our head. We actually create this overwhelm just by thinking that we have all this stuff to do, or we're not sure about what we have to do, or this is going on and that's going on. And we build up these stories in our head, and we actually create our own overwhelm. And
Absolutely.
that always amazes me. When I first realized that it was me who was actually creating the overwhelm, that was when I first stopped and went, why are you doing this? And so
Yeah.
now, anytime I get overwhelmed, the first thing I stop and do is go, where is this coming from? Why am I doing this? What is actually important?
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about what you're saying as well, that let's flip it, because if I've created the overwhelm, this means that I can create anything else that I want to as well, especially when we know and you start to understand and become aware that it is the meaning that you're putting on in your head, the meaning that you are creating. So that means I actually have the power to create whatever I want. So I can create, let's say, easygoing. I can create abundance. I can create the next steps that I'm going to take, and just take them in a way that I can feel really comfortable with myself and say, okay, there might be a number of tasks that need to be done. Okay, it starts with one, and let's get this
Exactly.
first one done and move on to the next.
And you said something else earlier too about the creation and all of that stuff and the tasks of getting things done. And I think sometimes we create the overwhelm. We make up the stuff in our head based on some limiting beliefs that we have. When you mentioned about we think that if we don't get it all done, we failed. And I think that stems from a limiting belief that it's you have to get everything done. And somewhere in your life, you were taught that if you don't get it done, that means you failed. And failure is a bad thing. I don't view failure as a bad thing. So I never think of it as a failure. I think of it as I didn't get something done. However, I don't consider it a failure. And I just put it on the next list. Or if it ends up on the list for more than 5 days or more than a week, at that point, I look and consider, well, I still haven't done it and it's a week later. So how important is this really?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the way I frame it nowadays is that, so rather than look at something as failure, and again, I'm not saying anything new here, and this is what I really like people to understand when it comes to mindset as well, right? Like, in all honesty, and I say this with the utmost respect to Regina, I know she's phenomenal at what she does, and the thing is this: we are not reinventing the wheel here. This information is readily available. People know this. So what I like to look at, rather than look at anything as failure nowadays, is this. I say this is, rather than look at failure, I look at it as feedback. So I say, okay, so this particular task maybe hasn't been done, or maybe I haven't arrived where I want to arrive yet. Okay, so let me look at this. What feedback can I look at this? What could I do differently? Especially if it's something, maybe we've created a result that we didn't want to create. And this is why it's feedback, because ultimately, whatever you're doing, you are creating a result. So you're getting the results. It's just that sometimes you're not getting the result that you thought you were going to get. So now you look at it and you say, okay, so what feedback can I take from here? What could I learn from this? And now can I go back to, sometimes it's going back to the drawing board and said, you know what? That didn't work. That's okay. Let me attempt a different way. And you attempt a different way. I mean, how many times have we heard from Dr. Terry about, testing, right? About testing and saying, okay, we attempt here, you do it this way, you test it. You test it, you know what? That really worked well, or this didn't work well. How can I change this? How can I shift it? So looking at things as feedback, like, and I look at my life and I go, oh my God, and I look back and I go, oh, okay, now I can see, like, if the feedback I get from that, okay, I would do this differently. I would do this differently. And the other thing that I think is really important here as well, and I think is really key, is for anybody to be gentle with themselves. And you don't have to beat yourself up just because maybe you haven't arrived yet at the result that you want. And the key word there is yet. You haven't arrived yet. You're in a process. You're on a journey. And you might as well enjoy it. Like, there's tons of stuff now that, potentially some stuff that might be happening right now. So for those of you right now who are listening, and maybe you're going through a really, really challenging time, and it seems like everything's caving in, I can guarantee you that probably within 2 years, probably less, you'll be looking at that at this time now and actually laughing at it. So if that's going to be the case, Why wait? You might as well laugh now because you're
Exactly.
going to get through it.
I love that. And you know, the whole idea of looking at failure as feedback, I always look at what can I learn from this? You know, it
That's
was
it.
the Thomas Edison famous line of I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways it didn't work,
That's
right?
right.
It's all in how you view what it is that's going on that makes the difference. And I know that's
Yeah,
what the two of us do. We work on mindset. We just basically help people. Like you said, none of this is new information. However, some people just need to hear it from somebody else and
absolutely.
just understand that it's a reframing of your mind and your mindset so that you just look at it a different way. The overwhelm, all the stuff that's making you overwhelmed may still be there. However, if you choose to respond in a different way to it and think about it in a different way, that can make all the difference. And like you said,
Absolutely.
there's you said, you know, it be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself. I use the line all the time, you know, give yourself permission to be human. You know, we are human. We are perfectly imperfect.
We are all human. It's a bit like you said, without a doubt. And I think that that human aspect, I think that's absolutely vital, even with what we do and how we can relate with people, because we like, there's some things we've been through, first of all, that and we can pass that, let's say, that experience, that in some cases, dare I say this humbly, wisdom, uh, uh, just because we've been through these experiences, and again, you know, it's not like I have all the answers. You know, there are things that I haven't figured out yet. I'm still figuring out stuff as well. Like I said, it's a journey, and we're learning. We're continuously learning, and I think which is absolutely vital is that y- you're enjoying that process. Like even when you're going through your overwhelming, the way I like to say is that, you know, people want to talk about success and what is success, and there's so many different ways of looking at it and perspectives of looking at it. One of the perspectives I like to look at is that, you know, when I can actually like sway through my crap, right? And let's use crap as challenging times, challenging moments, you know, overwhelm. Let's use overwhelming. So when I can sway through my really overwhelming moments, smiling and laughing, I think that truly is success, because you understand that, like you said, you're on a journey, not saying anything new. You understand that it's one phase of your life. It's one phase of your life. I like to look at it as, recently I was talking about this, and I was talking about how each phase of our life is almost like a pit stop. So if we looked at a Formula One race, and I know in the States, NASCAR is probably more important, but I have one statistic that I know is from Formula One, but let's use that. And potentially there's people all over the world listening. So, you know, Formula One, a pit stop on average is just over 2 seconds.
Wow.
And in that 2 seconds, tires are being changed, body parts are being changed, you know, refueling is being done. No different than the different phases in our life. And in those phases, in those overwhelming phases, potentially during that overwhelming phase, you're just refueling, you're changing a way of doing something, changing a body part, you know, getting the tires changed. So now you're ready for the next, I don't know, whatever laps are that the next phase of your life, of your business life, or whatever it is. So those small, they're just like mini pit stops, those phases, that overwhelmment. And for me, that's a heavy weight off my shoulders, in the sense that I know it's going to pass. I know it's going to pass. You're going to come through it, because in actual fact, when it comes to life, you can't get this shit wrong.
True.
You can't get it
Yeah,
wrong.
that's
Like
really
you're
true.
gonna go. It's just a phase in your life, and you're gonna continue onwards.
Yeah, I love the idea that, you know, all you need is a pit stop. You know, take
That's it.
the 2 seconds, give yourself a pit stop and then move along. You know, move on to the next round, the next circle on the Formula One, whatever. However, I don't know how the Formula One goes if it's up roads, but you know, NASCAR is just
It's
going around the
laps. It's
circle.
laps. It's
Okay,
laps. It's laps. It's not just a circle, but it's laps.
jump into the next lap. You know, give
It's
yourself a
not like it's not like I'm a big fan of Formula One or anything. It's really not. It's really not. But I don't know this. And that's the other thing. So you just mentioned something really cool, and I want to mention it since you mentioned it. So that's inspiration. And this is what I wanted to talk about was inspiration, like because these pit stops and what you mentioned was the stopping part.
Mhm.
I think when you're feeling overwhelmed. So for those of you listening, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you can take a moment and just stop and take a moment of, I like to say, take a moment of appreciation and look at all the things that are really working in your life, okay? Because in overwhelmment, many times we're just looking at the things that we think or appear not to be working right now. But if we take a moment and shift away from that and say, okay, let me look at the things that are working in my life right now. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. They don't have to be connected at all with this overwhelmment that's going on. But you look over to this side and you say, oh wow, you know what? I have a roof over my head. Oh wow, I have running water. Oh wow, I have clothes to wear. Oh wow, I have a pillow to sleep on. Oh wow, I have a bed to sleep on. Oh wow, I have people who support me around me. Oh wow, I have reading glasses on me because without them I wouldn't be seeing you very well. Right? So and all these things that are really cool in my life that are working. And the minute I do that, like all of a sudden there's a sense of relief. The sense of you know what? I got a lot of good things going on. And I just shift there and look at that and I go, okay, and now I can carry on. So taking that moment, because that moment is where you will be inspired. That moment is where you will find the solution. That moment is where you all of a sudden a brand new idea pops into your head. It doesn't just pop into your head, right? But you got to allow the space for that to happen. Once you can allow space for that to happen, it's a whole new ball game. It's because now you can get that inspiration and you can move forward with solutions, with ideas, and a brand new day.
Right. And so that pit stop is really a gratitude moment. Stop
Absolutely.
and be grateful for what you do have and for what you have accomplished. And knowing that, be grateful for everything that is to come as well. Can you just imagine that all this stuff that we talk about being overwhelmed about, we have this thing to do, this thing to do, this thing to do. If we had absolutely nothing to do ever for the rest of our lives, I don't know about you. Some people are like, oh, yeah, I'd love to have that. I find that incredibly boring. And I don't feel that that is living. I
Yeah.
want things to do.
I think it's in our nature. In all honesty, I think it's in our nature to have something to move towards, to something to strive for, something to be. Let me use the word ambitious. A lot of people think ambitious is sort of like a negative connotation, but the ambition to move forward, to move towards something.
Mhm.
I think that's in our nature, and I think it's what's important about it is that we're not attached to that thing that we're moving towards. So this comes in with overwhelmment as well, because I think sometimes entrepreneurs can get overwhelmed with the fact that they get so attached to what they perceive as what needs to be the end result, right? So this needs to be the end result, and without that end result, again, we come back to I'm not good enough. I don't deserve this. All of these things that potentially you could be saying to yourself, and we attach it to it. If we let go of that attachment, if we and this takes practice. Let me make this very clear, people. This takes practice because we are taught in a completely different way. We're taught that we have to achieve the end result so that we can receive that trophy at the end of the road, if you want to call it. Well, I hate to burst anybody's bubble here, but I'm going to tell you something that maybe you don't know yet. You will never arrive at the end because there's always more. You think you're going to arrive at the end, but then there's always more. There's like, okay, so this is why you really don't have to be overwhelmed because ultimately you have right now, and being so attached to that end result, the attachment, what it does is create that you think you're not going to be successful until you get there, when in actual fact you could be successful right now.
Mhm.
You have that opportunity, you have that option to consider yourself successful right now. Recently I was speaking somewhere else, and they were saying that how can an entrepreneur, let's say, be feeling burnt out And at the same time, I can say that they're still successful. They were saying, no, you can't say they're successful. Well, there's a whole spectrum of success. They might be burnt out and not successful in that aspect right now. And I put that in quotation marks on purpose, because I really don't consider anybody as not successful. They are where they are right now. But they could potentially not be successful because they're feeling burned out right now, but they might have areas of their life where they're extremely successful. They have, potentially have good relationships with their children, have with their family. They could be having a lot of success in a lot of different areas. So they're still very successful. And ultimately, like I said, you're successful because you are where you are right now. And I
Mhm.
think this is important as well for anybody listening to understand. And I think we miss this sometimes. We miss telling people enough. So I really encourage anybody listening to tell anybody you want today. Tell them, you know what? You're perfect the way you are. You are beautiful the way you are. And you are exactly where you are meant to be right now. In
Yes.
my life, in wherever you are, it's perfect in all the imperfections. And I've said this many a time face to face with a potential client, with and amazingly, it creates this emotion of, holy crap.
Mhm.
You know what? That's true. I do deserve to be, I deserve to know that I am perfect the way I am. Are there some behaviors maybe that you want to change? And maybe, yeah, sure. So what? But again, it comes back to, you have this journey. You might as well enjoy it.
Right now in this present moment, it's an Eckhart Tolle, with the power of now. Right now in this present moment, everything is perfect, exactly the way it's
That's
supposed
it.
to be. Everything's good.
Exactly.
And so when you can actually stop, when you're in that state of overwhelm where your monkey brain is just going crazy, all you need to do is just be quiet for a moment. And you can do that by expressing some gratitude. That will that will interrupt the whole overwhelm and make you stop and go, wait, what is going really well right now? What am
Yeah.
I grateful for? And then it shifts your way of thinking so that you can pause the overwhelm and then go, okay, so what's actually important? And bring yourself back to center and back to the present.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. And what a paradox, right?
right.
because as entrepreneurs, business people, a lot of times it's like, but I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta keep going. And then we're saying, like, just take a moment. It's okay. Like, it's okay. That's action too. Stopping is action too. So it's a bit of a paradox, but extremely powerful. Extremely
It,
powerful.
it is. And I was recently someplace too where we were talking about breath. And I didn't really associate breath as much when it came to overwhelm, but breath is life, right? And the person who was speaking, she goes, your soul is in your voice and in your breath. That is you. And every single one of us is going to have a last breath, which was, at first it was kind of depressing. It was like, oh yeah, we're all going to have a last breath. And what she said was, and you don't know how many breaths you are going to have before you get to that last breath. So who do you want to spend your breaths on? What do you want to spend your breaths on? Do you want to spend it on something that's driving you crazy or something that's making you happy and bringing you joy? And I just got chills when I said that. It made me,
Yeah,
I was like, made me stop and think. I was like, I don't know. Who am I spending my breaths on? And, who do I want to spend my breaths with? Because who knows when the last one's going to be there?
that's
We don't
right.
know.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. And
100%.
that just stopped me. Yeah.
Yeah, and and like anything else, it's a choice,
Yeah.
and you have that choice. You have that choice who you want to spend it with, and how you want to spend it with, and again, and I don't think it's a matter of also, as you very well know, it's a matter of looking at yourself and how. So even when you are spending it, let's say for some reason you find yourself in a situation where maybe you are surrounded by some people that maybe normally you might not want to be around. Let's say so, for instance, tonight I'm going to a networking event in person, hallelujah, and right, I'm going to a networking event. Now who's going to be there, and that I don't know, but what I do know what I do know is how I can show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do know. That's what I have control over. And how do I want to show up for that event? And the amazing thing is this, is how I show up is going to have an effect on the people I will actually be having conversations with. The
Absolutely.
people who are going to show up for me and the conversations that I'm going to have. And in that lies a lot of power, because
Oh,
now
absolutely.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm taking I'm taking the, and because I'm being responsible, I'm being accountable for myself. You know, so even last night I was online last night as well in a networking event, and we're sort of like some breakout sessions. And on the first one, I sort of like presented myself in that, but then I sort of said to myself, you know what, Ken, let's change this up a tiny bit. Let's create a little more energy in this, right? And it just made all the difference in the world. In the next couple of breakout sessions, just made all the difference. The difference was I was in the same event, but the difference was me, and being accountable to myself, knowing that, you know what, okay, that I looked at it, said, you know, that didn't quite work the way I thought it would work. Let me change it up a bit. Let me change it. Let me get feedback to myself and say, okay, let's change this. So just intertwining how you can actually do this every day in your life. How are you showing up? How are you showing up with the cashier at the supermarket and interacting with them? You know, how are you showing up? I think it's very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I love that concept because it's you taking control of your life and how you show up instead of letting the events control you. You're controlling whatever's going on because you know how you're going to show up and how you're going to act and if you're going to adapt and pivot.
Exactly. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, so we're just a little bit over time right now. So I just wanted to, tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do and your program, as I just brought up, Adapt and Pivot, and how do you help people?
Okay, so as you mentioned in the beginning, I help frustrated entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot. So using my proprietary ARC method, they're able to have more time freedom. And I found over the years that many entrepreneurs start out their business because they really want to have that time freedom, amongst other things. But that has stood out amongst many entrepreneurs. Yet many go down a rabbit hole. It's amazing how many go down a rabbit hole, end up, working very long hours for a very long period of time. It's not like one-offs. It becomes the norm. So this is what I'm all about, is helping them to understand that they can actually regain that time freedom. Like amazingly, I did just a little bit of and I'd like to offer this to the listeners here, just an exercise. So just imagine this. I say to you, take 1 hour a day for yourself, whatever it is. Take 1 hour a day for yourself. That is the equivalent of 365 hours in a year. Now, that is the equivalent of 42 8-hour days. Now, Regina, if I approached you as an entrepreneur and said to you, Regina, you know what? I want you to take 42 days off. You'd probably look at me and say, Ken, that is impossible. There is no way I can take 42 days off. I have my business going and all of this stuff. Yet, if you took 1 day, 1 hour a day off, in a year, you would have taken the equivalent of 42 8-hour days just for yourself, already regaining some of your time. So this is what I'm all about. I have created a 12-month program, which is called the Inside Lane, because as we've spoken about here, you got to do the inner work. The inner work needs to be done. And the inside lane is the shortest lane. You want to be on the outside lane, you can do that too. There's no right, no wrong. It's just going to take you a little longer. And that's okay if that's what you want. The inside lane is a little bit of a shorter distance. And that's what I help people to get through. That's what I help people to get through.
And you have to be on that inside lane in order to get to your pit stop.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You always, even if you're on the outer lane, at some point you got to come to
You
the
got to come
inside lane,
in.
right? And it's interesting. I thought about this, and if you look at a track, if you were to open up the track, so whether you're on the outer lane or the inner lane, if you were to open up the track completely and make it a straight line, everyone's going to end up at the finish line. So like I said, you can't get this stuff wrong. It's just maybe there are ways and steps and measures for you to make it a shorter learning curve for you to actually get to where you want to get to.
Right, right. I love your analogy there. So thank you so much for being with us today, and adding your
My absolute
wisdom
pleasure.
in for how to deal with overwhelm. And so, if anybody wants to check Ken's information out, Ken, you can feel free under this video on Facebook in the group to throw in your information. So if people want to come check out Mindset Malta and check out your group,
Absolutely.
they can go over there and check that out as well. And thank you for being my very first guest on Coffee with Regina. You got your
Absolute
coffee cup?
privilege.
Yes.
I feel like it was an honor to be here. I truly enjoyed it. And yeah, and I'll also, within your chat as well, I'll also offer your listeners a free gift with my consumer educational guide as well, how to step into the magic of the successful entrepreneur now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us for a cup. And join us in 2 weeks when we'll be back again to have another guest here and just enjoy a cup of coffee and have a little chat and create value for your life. Thanks all for joining us. Have an amazing day.